Hi there folks, welcome to another episode of Stir. I'm your host John Valentine. Today we're going to talk about chimichurri. It's a recipe that originates out of South America, and traditionally it's used on red meats, white meats, etc. However, with a slight deviation, I want to point out that chimichurri originated from any herbs lying around the house. There's not a specific recipe per se, although typically it would include things like garlic, it would include chili, and it would normally include some kind of a base oil, coconut oil even, olive oil typically, normal cooking oil, a canola oil, again whatever that you have on hand. And to that you would typically add salt and pepper, preferably a coarse salt if you can do so, and then a range of fresh herbs. Again, any herbs that you have lying around the house. There's a couple that typically I have around my home. I have a garden that I eat out basically every single day. I have my own chilies and a range of different herbs, and in fact my entire garden is designed like that. I'm definitely one of those people who believes that your entire garden should pay for its space. What I mean by that is there isn't a plant in my garden that isn't a vegetable, a herb, or a fruit tree. Every single one of them, besides looking good, must produce something in turn for me, and I'll show you a couple of examples now. Typically when you're at the shops and you're buying fresh herbs, and again fresh is always better than dried where possible, a lot of the fresh herbs are hydroponically grown and actually look totally different in the wild or naturally grown organically at home, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what they look like when it's grown organically. As promised, I want to show you an example of some of the herbs that I utilize and are grown fresh in my garden. This is rocket, and this is typically what you would find in the shops if it looks hydroponic. But the full plant in fact looks something like this. You can see it's quite long, got a pretty little flower on the end of it. Another one that I use typically in my garden is basil. Basil, another one. Look, there's still a little flower on this as well. I use fresh basil. It's actually got quite a stick where it grows on the stem, not looking anything like hydroponically, where typically you wouldn't see a wooden stick. I've got oregano here as well, or oregano as the Americans would typically would refer to it. Also got the little flowers on it. Now typically speaking, once these herbs start to flower, all of them, the leaves change shape a little bit, the taste is possibly reduced or enhanced, and I like to leave it to the point of flower, and the reason for that is that it brings bees. Bees love rocket flowers, love basil flowers, and of course those bees are responsible for the majority of pollination globally. The hardest workers on the planet are bees. I absolutely love them. If I had the space, I would definitely keep my own bees. Something special to perceive in your own garden, and you know your garden's nice and healthy. The more bees and butterflies you have, the better it is. Right, here we have the herbs that we've now plucked off their various stems and are ready to be cut up. Before we do that, I want to point out again and remind all budding chefs and cooks, always have a sharp knife on hand. There are more accidents in the kitchen every year from blunt knives than there are from well sharpened knives. Keep it nice and sharp before use. I like to use a tool called multi-sharp. Very, very simple to use. Drag it along the top of your blade. A lot easier to use than a typical sharpening stone, and of course this keeps your knives going forever and ready for use every time. So I like to fold up the leaves that we picked like this into a little pile, roll it, and then you can get yourself a consistent cut every time. So that's our basil, to a nice little roll. You follow the same principle with the rocket. Pull it into a little bundle that you can easily grip between two fingers, and just cut it off into a similar size. While I'm cutting away here, Michael has reminded me about the bees, because I'm such an advocate for bee protection and the incredible role that they play in the environment. There's a company in South Africa called Fed Group. Now Fed Group has a range of products on hand, and basically what they offer is that you can buy solar panels and beehives and blueberry bushes and lettuce. They farm it on your behalf, and every couple of months you get funds back. So they deduct the funds that they pay to the farmer, and then you get a return. It's a really handy way, in my case, to make sure that bees are remain protected and to get a good quality product and to earn a little bit of cash out of it at the end of the day as well. But being so passionate about bees, it's one of the ways I choose to support them. And absolutely, let's keep bees alive and thriving. Right, as you can see, I've already got the basil on the go and the rocket. I'm going to add in some oregano. Right, once you've chopped up all your herbs, it looks something like this. You can chop it up finer if you prefer to do so. What I've done obviously with the stems and the offcuts from the herbs as well, nothing goes to waste in this household. All my vegetable offcuts go straight back into the garden. Even eggshells toss right in the garden. You don't have to have a special fertilizer heap or compost heap. Toss it out into your garden. It'll grow again naturally where there are seeds and produce even more stock for you. The only thing I typically will not throw into my garden is onions, onion shells, citrus shells or skins, and chili. The reason for that is some of them have acidic compounds, which is not great for other plants, and others just tend to block other plant growth. So just watch out for those three things. There may be other couple of rules and tips that you're aware of, but those are the ones that I generally utilize and don't throw into my garden. But otherwise, every other vegetable offcut in this house goes back into my garden, ready for reuse. Right, so we've got on our herbs. We happen to have a range of 3 herbs in there at the moment: the basil, the oregano, and some rocket. I'm going to throw in a teaspoon of garlic. This is concentrated garlic, crushed, not the fresh, but you can use fresh as well. In fact, it's better. But I happen to have got this one from NutriPick. Great band to use. Next up, we're going to utilize some of my favorites. Himalayan salt, quite generous. We want the coarseness of the salt to bruise the leaves and to sit nicely on our palate. Put in a pinch of black pepper. Coarse black pepper would be best if you have it available. Some oil. You don't need to soak the entire dish. Stir it up. You also don't have to prepare the ingredients in the exact order that I've given you here. Do it in the way that's comfortable for you. And we're ready for the last ingredient. Some chilies that I've homegrown and ready to chop into my dish. I'm going to use about a small handful, probably about 5 or 6 of these to chop in. Again, you prepare according to your taste. If you're not a fan who likes really hot or spicy things, you may want to use a little less. In this house, we're going to be quite generous with it. Right, so we're going to cut up our chilies rather finely. You will see I've also got different colors of chili in here as well. That brings a nice vibrancy to the dish, otherwise it's just terribly green. But again, work with seasonality. If you have some color to throw in, then throw some color in. Right, while I'm chopping up my chilies, it reminds me, for those of you not wearing gloves or haven't worked too often with chilies, a little reminder. Once you've worked with chilies, make sure you wash your hands. You do not want to be scratching anything sensitive while you've still got chili sauce on your hands. There could be an unpleasant feedback. Right, so we've now added our chili to the dish, ready to stir it all up. Now, typically speaking, in a dish like this, you're going to eat it fresh. or it stores incredibly well for up to 10 days as is. Make sure you just add in maybe a little bit of oil. The general rule of thumb is that the amount of oil you utilize should slightly be higher than the contents of the dish. Now today I've used normal cooking oil, but again there's nothing stopping you from using the canola or the olive oil variety, whatever floats your boat. And as you can see now, my oil is the same level as my content, and this is ready to eat and to serve with a beautiful cut of red meat, piece of chicken, or whatever takes your fancy on the day. Thank you for joining us on another episode. All the best from myself and Michael. Watch the space and we'll see you for the next episode.
Bye
Bon
guys.
appetit. That's so good.